So I just recently released a video that was very different from a normal Dig in the Greats video. And this video starts with this because someone sent me this. That someone is Simon Adler. He is the senior producer for Radiolab. And he sent me this and said nothing about it. He just said, hey, I'd love to send you a project. And I thought, if it's music, why are you not just sending me the Spotify or the Dropbox or something? And then what I got was this. And if you have not seen the video, you should definitely go watch the video because this will not make a whole lot of sense if you haven't seen the video. But the video was very fun and very different. Went in a totally different direction than a typical Dig in the Greats video, but so much fun. And I got to talk to Simon about how he made this. It's a little bit like found sound, like vaporwave vibe, mixed in with like an 80s self-help tape. And it's musical, it's cinematic, there's a story that's happening with it. It's all so fascinating, and it just, as I show in the video, it just demands your attention. And so I wanted to talk to him more about it. And so in that video, there is a section where we talk about the project, but today I want to bring you the full conversation. We talk about a lot more specifics of not only the packaging, but the process of making the music and his thought process with all of it. He's got a lot of great thoughts on creativity. This was so much fun getting to make this video, to highlight this project, also to do something very different for me and personal in a way. Here is my conversation with Simon Adler. Yeah. You said you're sending me a project that you're working on.
Correct.
I was expecting a Spotify link or a Dropbox link, and then you sent me this, which I have never seen anything like before.
Excellent. That was the hope.
And it's also, the format is, well, first of all, that's you on the video.
Yes, I am Dr. Richard Stillwell.
Can you explain to me, what is this project?
So, Windstar Enterprises is a pseudo self-help company. A company that, in its first release, Solutions, is purporting to change your life by teaching you how to reprogram your memories. And now, why the hell did we decide that we wanted to make this? Well, we could spend a lot of time talking about that, but at its inception, it's like, this is a record, this is a sound collage made out of a lot of found sound and a lot of recreated sound where we've refocused and reordered things. And fundamentally, both the craft of reordering and refocusing and the thesis of the project that by refocusing and reordering your experiences, you can sort of change your own reality, was the idea that initially got me excited in playing around with this stuff and trying to make this stuff work.
I've been listening to the tape.
Great.
It's difficult to describe because it's very musical, but do you call them songs?
I think so. Yeah, I don't know. This was actually...
Because it's very, like, cinematic in its feeling, and it's very, I don't know, it's an experience listening to the whole thing.
Yeah, that's good. That's the hope. I don't know, and, like, it's been an interesting process after making it being like, oh, we have to put some labels on this thing now.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, like, on the one hand, it is a 10-track record.
Yes.
On the other hand, it's like the most musical audio nonfiction you've ever heard.
Yes.
Well, and then it's also sort of audio fiction, sci-fi audio fiction, found sound audio fiction.
Yes.
So somewhere between the Blair Witch Project, public radio documentary, and an indie rock album. Let's call it that.
Yeah. Okay. How did this idea come about for the concept of, you said the found sound thing, but into what this has ended up being? And specifically this package.
Right. So the process of making it was very slow. It literally started out with, I got a C1 talking tape machine, which the Library of Congress put out. That effectively it was like, if you are deaf or hard of hearing, but you want material from the Library of Congress, they would send you this tape player along with someone having read the book that you're requesting from the Library of Congress on tape. Now, that's like an interesting little bit of history, but what's cool about the machine is it has incredibly high fidelity, variable speed playback. So you can slow the tape down or speed it up really, really fast, all you want. And so effectively, the inception for me and sort of the practice of making this stuff was taking tapes that I would buy or find and slowing them down and listening to 10s, 20s hours of this stuff and finding like those 3 seconds are cool. It's just like digging in the crates, looking for...
but through the Library of Congress.
Yeah. Looking for these little moments. And so to fast forward to the packaging of it, it's like, as we've discussed, this thing that we made, it doesn't quite, like it's somewhere between 1980 and 2030. It like is sort of genre bending. And it was like, well, I want to put it out in a way that captures all of those same aesthetics and feelings and connotations. And so I spent a bunch of time looking at different packaging options, working with a bunch of different Chinese manufacturers, looking into what these packaging options could be.
Yeah.
And finally stumbled on this idea of a video brochure.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I've never seen anything like that. I don't think anybody's put a record out like that before.
Yeah.
And so suddenly there's like that excitement of like, okay, this is new. This is tickling me. And then, it was like, okay, we want to put it out on tape because it's all tape samples at the end of the day. But most people don't have cassette players, so we got to find a way to give it to them digitally.
Yeah.
Found people making the little MP3 players, package it all together, have it fly from Shenzhen here. Here we are.
Wow. I have so many questions.
Great.
Because it feels like you have the actual album, but then the world around the album is so interesting and I don't want to say eerie, but like off-putting, where you're like, I don't understand what this is.
Right.
And it feels like if that were just on Spotify and that was your only release method, it feels like the wrong thing to do. And so doing it in this way, when you sent this to me, my mind was blown. And then immediately in the video, you're like, go ahead and dim the lights and put headphones on if you have it. And that's immediately what I did, because I'm like, I have to know what this is going to be. So is this an entirely custom thing with the video and the MP3 player element and the tape?
Yes, we worked with 4 different manufacturers to get all the pieces. And then we did the actual assembly of the various pieces here. But the video brochures themselves, they're sort of cookie cutter. When you find the right manufacturer, they will allow you to play within the bounds. So it's it could be a certain size. The screen could be bigger, could be smaller. The hard drive size on the screen or attached to the screen could be a certain size. But sure, let's say it's custom.
Yeah. But that's not like you went on a website and they were like, here's video brochures. You dreamed this up.
Yeah, or there were people, these video brochures exist as promotional materials primarily for conferences.
Really?
On the floor of conferences. And so it's you're selling to other salespeople, and so these exist for that purpose.
Okay. Wow. That's crazy. Okay. So you said there's found sound, sampling and recreation. Can you tell me about, because there's so much in there. I would be really curious to see your session files for how many tracks are in each of these things. Can you tell me about the process of making it on the sampling end or on the recreation end or any of that?
Sure. Well, let's talk about Oakwood, track 2.
Yes.
So Oakwood is effectively the main source material is all of this old news footage about the opening of the mall, Oakwood Mall, in the town that I grew up in, Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
So that's real?
That's real.
Okay.
It's real, all of that footage. And so found that, grabbed that, digitized that, transcribed all that, started like trying to create little scenes out of that with that tape. Simultaneously, we're taking like old smooth jazz samples and like trying to find the right smooth jazz sample to put underneath it. Finally, that coalesces, and then it's like, now let's recreate all of it. So all of the news broadcasters you hear on Oakwood are voice actors that we hired to read the lines that the news broadcasters actually said.
Oh, wow.
And in one case, we actually got the guy, the news broadcaster who's now retired. We got him to reread his lines here 40 years later. And same thing with then the smooth jazz samples. It's like, partially for licensing purposes, it's like, it's just cleaner to have recreated it. But then it's also just like, from a mix point of view, when you're digitizing stuff on tape, you're just not getting a lot of low end, you're not getting a lot of really high end. So like, certainly we needed to re-record all the bass parts. And then once you do that, it's like, well, let's just sort of re-record all of it. It gives us much sort of finer tune control in the mix process as you're taking this like really disparate field of sonic material and trying to make it feel like a cohesive thing that like could have just existed on a cassette tape 40 years ago.
Yeah. How long was the creation process from like beginning to source stuff to like final mix?
4.5 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it was like 2 years of playing around not knowing what I was making.
Yeah.
Which was like the fun and terrifying part of it, where it's like, I don't know what this is. This might not be anything. I'm now 1.5 years into this. Is this going to coalesce?
Yeah.
Or am I just sitting in my bedroom by myself?
Yeah. Wow. There's other credits listed on the inside of the thing.
Yeah.
Tell me what you did, because are you singing on it? Are you playing saxophone? Are you playing keys? Are you primary producer sampling? What does the creation process look like with that?
Right. So I'm doing all the synths. I'm doing, I think, all the guitar on it, all the saxophone, and then like the producing of the samples and the arranging of the samples.
Yeah.
But then again, where it's like, I'm not the greatest singer in the world, so maybe I would lay down like some scratch tracks. But then like, again, because I'm from Eau Claire, Wisconsin, which is where the band Bon Iver is from, like I'm connected with those guys a little bit, and so I reached out to Sean Carey, who's in Bon Iver and is a musician in his own right under the name S. Carey, and was like, you want to sing on some of this stuff? And he's like, sure, yeah, why not? And then again, like, he spent a day recording a bunch of stuff, sent it to us, and then it's like, holy shit, we've got a whole new catalog of collage material to start integrating in. And we just did that over and over again with a bunch of different musicians, some jazz guys here in New York. I also used Fiverr a lot. You ever use Fiverr?
Yeah.
So again, in sort of the sample recreation process, we worked with a Ukrainian violinist to record some tracks. We had a Granadan soul singer record some tracks on Ovation. And then on Oakwood, it's a Venezuelan rock singer who helped us recreate, the vocal samples that you hear in the chorus on
That's amazing. I love that there's like so many different aspects all coming together in this. Tell me about the Windstar world, because like there's this video brochure, but there's the website and there's promotional videos and there's not even just the aesthetic, but there's so much other stuff to dig into. Like it's its own little small universe to get vaguely lost in.
Sure.
So tell me about building that.
Yeah, so I'd say like the inspiration, as the project got going, it became clear that what I wanted to make was War of the Worlds for the 21st century. And so this thing that exists in the world as a creation, but that purports to be something authentic.
Yeah.
And so when we're talking about War of the Worlds, we're talking about radio as the dominant medium, and you could broadcast out a fake news broadcast and you could convince people of its authenticity that way. Well, in the 21st century, whether we like it or not, like to do the media is to have to do all the forms of the media. So it's like, if we're going to build this fake company, it's not going to be enough. It's not going to be convincing in any way, shape, or form, or even all that compelling if it's just a piece of sound.
Yeah.
But if we can start to create like fake documentary footage about it, so like using some AI image generators and a bunch of found footage, we create like the origin story of the company, which you can find. Or we created a bunch of promotional material that are just like little 20-second videos that you would stumble across maybe on late night television if the actual company exists. Or of course then all the music videos, and then the website worked with this wonderful designer to effectively create like a 1984 Mac desktop clone.
Yes.
So that you get on the website and it feels like you're on an old Mac desktop, and everything is like icons that you can play with. So like artistically, the goal was to again create this very like sincerely inauthentic product.
Yeah.
And then sort of just personally, it's like it's just more fun to get to do all that stuff, man. Like it's like it was such a ball.
Yeah.
So those were the two sort of. It was the confluence of like wanting to get to play with all these different mediums and the necessity for the sort of larger spirit of the project to come through.
When did you release this?
Late April of this year.
Have you done any live aspects of this project?
We did. So the release show was, we rented out the corporate conference center of a hotel here in New York. And as you walked in, you had to register, you had to fill out an intake form, and then you got ushered to our first ambassador, who was standing next to an old Commodore 64 monitor, and 5 at a time you'd put on your headphones and watch the intro documentary. Then you'd be ushered into the main room where there was a little bar, you'd have a sip, we had our other little pieces of media playing, and then at the predetermined hour, the main doors opened up into the hall where I, as Richard Stillwell, like did the thing, did the sort of like fake, like timeshare salesman, self-help guru.
Yeah.
And we had music videos for all of the videos. So it was like Richard Stillwell introducing ideas and aspects of the company, some tracks, another monologue, some tracks. And hopefully this created this experience.
Yeah.
Because the idea was, I think we pulled off an audio experience with the record.
Definitely. Yeah.
And it was like, how do we do that for people, for 50 people, 100 people at a time in a space together?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you gotta build all that out. I don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how to do it any other way. So yeah, that was the live version. The hope is to do more of them. It's a bit of it's like logistically a challenge to pull off.
Of course.
But yeah, that's the goal. And moving forward, like as we're already working on record 2, is thinking about how it all fits together into the live experience, which needs to feel more and more like a mega church experience.
Yeah. It feels like, like a mega church, or like Severance, the TV show.
Totally. Yeah.
Or like, I don't know, just that brand of sci-fi is like my favorite brand of sci-fi, where it's just something's off and you are trying to figure out what is happening. And that feels like that is the journey that I took with listening to this project. Let me ask you about the narrator's voice. And I have a theory about this.
Okay.
Because I just re-listened to your fantastic series, mixtape, that you did for Radiolab. And I was listening to it, and there was some sort of transition like after the ad break. And it came back, and it was just like a weird self-help tape thing. And I was like, is that the voice from the Windstar tape? Because it sounded like the same voice, and like it sounded like maybe that was the original tape and then you copied that voice or something. Is there anything to that, or am I reading too far into it?
No, it probably is. Yes, you're probably right. I don't know exactly the moment you're talking about, but like what we did, so there is a narrator on the
Yes.
project who is sort of like guiding you through this experience
Yes.
in a rather impressionistic manner.
Yeah.
But the way we made him was, and he was sort of at the beginning of the whole process, was like I got my hands on 30 of these hypnosis tapes from this 70s self-help guru. And I'd never heard of this guy, whatever. I start listening to him like, this is crazy. Like, this is really weird.
Yes.
And it's all like, it's incredibly, the idea behind it was incredibly compelling to me, which is that, like, just by listening to something, you could change your life.
Yeah.
Like, as somebody who makes podcasts and radio for a living, like, we're always talking about how do you change people's minds and like, can people's minds be changed, blah, blah, blah. And here was a guy who was confident that he could not just change your mind, he could change your goddamn life with his voice alone. And I'm like, I'm interested, I'm in, sign me up. And so what we effectively did, took these 30 tapes, digitized them all, transcribed them all, because this was right, and it's crazy that 5 years ago, like, these automated transcribers didn't really exist, but they were just coming on the scene. And so ran all of them through this program to script, which then created a library of like 2,000 or 3,000 words from this guy. We then added to that a bunch of other people's voices, so you get this sort of collage of voices. And from there, we could effectively like write in this voice whatever we wanted to say. And so, for example, track 3 is called The Source.
Yeah.
And, you know, in these 30 hours, he never utters the word source. But it's like, okay, you take like maybe he said the summary is, you take the s, and then you find him saying or, and then you find another s, and then you get the source. And then you spend an hour finding the right version of those, you can
and stitch them together.
Stitch them together in the right way, and then you run that up back onto a cassette tape, and then it sounds original.
That's crazy.
And so again, it's this idea of like manipulation, constant manipulation, like mirrors on mirrors on mirrors, so that you don't know where the original thing starts and the fabricated, synthesized thing ends.
That is the feeling of the whole thing. Definitely.
Good.
You said you're planning out another album.
Yeah, so we've got it. I'd say like 3 of the tracks are pretty well, 3 of the tracks are pretty well like figured out, and we're having a bunch of fun trying to figure out what the like big arc of the thing is.
And you're staying within the Windstar universe.
Yeah, so
and expanding that out.
Yeah, it's like if this is Windstar 1985, record 2 is what happened to Windstar 7 to 10 years later.
Oh.
So what that means is like sonically, we're pulling from stuff from the early 90s and a lot of these like Windows 95 sorts of sounds.
I can't wait. That sounds amazing.
So yeah, and it's also like what happens to a self-help company that's purporting to teach you how to reprogram your memories? Like, where did they go 10 years from then?
Right.
So that's what we're thinking about. That's what we're figuring out.
Yeah. I love the mystery around it, and I love the idea that this project, because you could have just released it in the way that everyone else does.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that you decided that this project kind of can't be that. And if you're going to do this thing justice, you have to do it in this sort of like expanded, sort of like I don't know if you have this feeling, but I'll get this feeling sometimes where I have an idea about something and then I start to brainstorm and then I start to go crazy about it. And then I go, oh, what if it was this whole thing? And then I go, no, that would be way too complicated for just this one little thing. But anytime I do follow that through, and I go, let's go ahead and do that.
Right.
It is a ton of work, and it kind of the outcome doesn't matter to me as much as it's the satisfaction that I know the thing that it wanted to be. I brought that into the world.
Totally.
so I think that's what I like. The album is really, really, really interesting, and I love listening to it and the journey and the world and the package. But I think what I like the most about it is that fact that, like, oh, it had to be this specific thing. It couldn't be, hey, like, it would be so much more, so much less impactful and so much less interesting if what you had sent me was a Spotify link.
Right, and like,
And that's not to say you can't release it on Spotify. I'm not trying to say that if that's what you want to do.
no.
I think having it in this way just demands so much more attention from the person who has this in their hands.
Right, and like, I think I have, like, there's the pragmatic side of me and there's the artistic side of me in my feelings on this. And I'll start with the pragmatic side, which is like, yeah, it's really hard to put music out right now and have anybody pay attention to it.
Yes.
And so it's like, certainly in the back of my mind was like, what do we do here to actually get somebody to open the record?
Yeah.
Because like, I work at public radio station, and like the music show is just down the aisle, and they get sent 500 copies of vinyl records a day.
Yeah.
And they mostly just get like, most of them are never opened, and they just get sent to like Goodwill where you can pick them up. Just because, like, again, there's just such a quantity of material coming in, and they can't get through all of it. So it's like, how do you make something that it commands attention,
Yes.
and like has a wow factor? So that was certainly in my mind.
Yeah.
And then it was also just a like constant dissatisfaction with what was available. And I mean that throughout the entire process. Like, it took 4 years to make because we would listen back to a track and be like, it's still not working. Like, and then it's like, you got to re-crack it open and rearrange and reconsider it. And it's when it got time to like figuring out the physical manifestation of it, it was like, just like, it doesn't feel right to just put it out on a cassette tape. It doesn't feel right to just like put it out on Spotify. Like, there has to be something more interesting to do here. And then you stumble upon that you can do something like this, and you're like, okay, that's the feeling I've been chasing right there.
Yes.
I've hit it. I trust that feeling.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's very effective. Have you found in just creativity in general, either in this project or elsewhere, have you found that to be true, where you have, I don't know, the format of something, and you put it in one box and it's not quite right, and then you put it in another one, and then that's, I don't know. I guess what I'm getting at is the thing where, with creativity, where you have an idea and you have a thing and you have to wrestle with it in order to get it out, and like you said, like, crack it open to figure out, oh, this is what this thing is. In other work that you've done, have you had that experience?
Totally. Yeah, and the way I was raised to be, like, I credit Radiolab, where I still work, and Jad and Robert, when they were there, is like really molding how I think about creativity and how I think about trying to make stuff. And there are like two big things there or let's say three big things there that I took away. One is like, you just have to iterate. The first version is never going to be the right version. Yeah. Like, it's going to take 30 tries. And over that process, you figure out what the thing is you're trying to make, and you make it, and then voila. Thing two is like, know when you feel surprised. Like, honing your ability to be aware of the physical sensation of surprise, and then learning to trust that is everything. So like, from the packaging, when I came across that, I was like, I've never seen anything like that. It's like, okay, trust that, to even like, as I'm listening through to 3 hours of slowed down cassette tapes, and it's like, there's one moment where you just feel like, what the heck was that? Yeah. It's like, draw a circle around that. That's the thing. Come back to that. Yeah. And then the third one is, like, when you're getting feedback, listen to the problems people are pointing at. Don't trust the solutions they're giving you.
Ooh.
So like if you hear something you're like, I don't like this, I think you should try this. Like I might not listen to that. I think you should try this. But like the fact that you are having a reaction to something means something is going on there. And
Yeah.
I need to like reverse
Iron
engineer
that out somehow, yeah.
why you're having that reaction. So yeah, those are I'm always thinking about that. And I like, even with this, my wife had to listen to this record. I'm sorry, so many times over the course of me working on it. And what I would do, and she was very kind to do it, is like, we'd both put our headphones on and listen, and I'd just watch her as she listened to see like what was happening. And it's like, if there's not a reaction or if there is a reaction, that's incredibly important information
Yes.
for how to go back and do it again.
I'm very familiar with that process with
Okay.
my wife.
Okay.
And specifically with joke moments in a video. And I'll play a video and then I'll just watch her watch it and then I'll go, no, she didn't laugh at that one.
Totally.
And maybe that joke wasn't for her. I don't know. But then if she laughs at something, I'm like, great. That's exactly the reaction that I wanted. Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, I'm very familiar with that that trick of playing it for someone else.
Figuring out the visual identity of this whole thing. We worked with this great guy, Jack Harrison, who his thing is logo design and animation, but then running, like doing everything in After Effects and Premiere, but then running it through old CRTs.
Wait, what's his name?
Jack Harrison?
What's his Instagram?
Mr. Jackio, I think?
I know him.
Oh,
I mean,
do you?
I don't know him personally, but I have seen his stuff, and it's incredible.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, no, he's like a rising star.
Yes.
Well, like, I think when we found him, he was a rising star.
Yes.
He is now a star.
Yes. It's incredible. So is this the graphics and things? Because I am curious about this. As someone who has also messed around with like trying to get a good VHS look
Right.
on something, and it's difficult to make it look real and not like a plugin.
Totally.
So how much of that visual stuff is him?
Well, so he did our logo, the sort of like Windstar flying across the screen.
Yes.
And then
That's on the beginning of the brochure and the website.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we worked with him throughout, insofar as like the video in here, I sent to him to have, like, we made the video, I just wanted him to master it because he like is the master of this CRT capture. But then what I did, in part because I couldn't afford him for everything, was I just started like teaching myself how to do it. So all of our visuals are made in Premiere, run through a CRT.
Wow.
And then camera pointed at it, capture, run it back into the computer. And some of the stuff I've done like through a VHS camcorder. So you get CRT through VHS back into the computer. But a lot of it, videographer friend, Zach Taylor, he has a very nice camera that's what we're using to do the capture.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it's just like you can't
beat it. Yeah. You can't even replicate it the same.
No. And that, again, it's like, that is the project.
Yeah.
Is like, is that real or is that not?
Yes. Something that I say a lot, my wife makes fun of me for this, but I've said it on my channel before, is like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. Like, let's go ahead and do this all the way.
Right.
And I think that's what I appreciate most about this entire project is you're like, if I'm going to do it, you're going to do it all the way through. With video capture or with tape samples or with the packaging or with the live thing you're talking about. That's wild.
Yeah, I hope that Windstar is just like a creative vehicle for myself and my friends. That it's like, it can be whatever we want it to be. And it should be in all forms. And like, yeah, there's some broad confines here that like we're doing this like weird self-help found sound collage stuff. But like within that, it's like a very large sandbox to get to play inside of. And yeah, that is that is my hope, that it is a sandbox that not just I can play in, but my friends can. And like, it's called Windstar Enterprises, and the initials of Windstar Enterprises is we, because it's like I don't want it. Like I want it to be like a little community of people trying to make cool stuff together.